Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. So today's video is my mid-month wrap-up for December. We are about halfway through December and I have read 14 books, and most of them are books that I actually own, which feels so good to be reading through some of my physical TBR. Can you tell that I've made a dent on my physical TBR? No. The physical TBR bookshelf is still overflowing. And you can see behind me, the bookshelves that are full of the red books are also overflowing. So I just really need to buy some more bookshelves, but today is not that day. So of the 14 books that I've read so far in December, my average rating has been a 3.8. And I have 2 2-stars, 1 3-star, 2 3.5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 2 5 stars. As always, I'm going to start with my lowest rated books and work my way towards the 5 stars. And since I didn't have any 1-star books so far, I will be starting with 2-star books. The first 2-star book I have to talk about is Unfortunately This Might Hurt. This is an adult thriller and it is a cult thriller. And basically we follow 3 different point of views. We follow a point of view set in the past of a young girl being abused by her father and her turning to magic to help her process this abuse. And then 2 POVs in the present timeline of 2 sisters, one who has kind of ran off to this cult-like wellness retreat, and one sister who is worried about the sister at the wellness retreat and is traveling to it to go check on her. This was actually part of my Predictathon TBR. I read it for Predictathon, which is a readathon that I was a co-host for. Lexi from Books with Lexi created Predictathon. And the whole point of Predictathon is to read books that you think you're going to give 5 stars to. So the fact that this is a 2-star is really sad. I really thought I would love it because I gave this author's other book, Darling Rose Gold, 5 stars. But alas, this book was just not for me. I gave it 2 stars because while I didn't absolutely hate it, there were some entertaining moments throughout. I just did not think it was a thriller. I thought this was mostly a fiction book, and it was really just interested in the formation of this cult and how brainwashing can work over time. And so, I mean, it was interesting to see the cult, but there was no real mystery throughout it, no real thrilling moments. It was really slow moving and just basically watching how this cult is formed. And there were some twists at the end, but you never get a sense of mystery leading up to the twist. So while you do experience some surprise towards the end, it's not like it's a surprise that you're waiting for because you don't even know the surprise is a thing that's possibly could happen. I hope that makes sense, but basically, even though there is a twist, I wouldn't really classify this as a mystery or a thriller. It's just fiction with a twist at the end, in my opinion. And I'm not a big fiction person. I really like thrillers. I really like mysteries. I want to be caught up in the mystery. I want to know the big reveal. I want to be thrilled throughout. And this was just a bit too slow for me. And it really was character focused. And I just didn't care about the characters. And therefore I didn't care about the story. My next 2-star book is another adult thriller, and it is If I Disappear. So the premise of this book is we follow this one girl who's obsessed with this true crime podcast, but then the true crime podcast stops updating, so she believes that the true crime podcaster has gone missing, so she travels to the podcaster's hometown and begins investigating her disappearance. In this story, we follow a really, really unlikable main point of view, but she's supposed to be unlikable. She's a little bit off balance, a little bit abnormal, and she's just incredibly obsessive over this true crime podcast, over true crime in general. And so she's not always going to make decisions that seem logical, but that's true to her character. And that was a positive in my opinion. I did enjoy reading from this character's point of view, and that's why this book got 2 stars instead of 1 star. But overall, I just don't think enough happened in this book. It really was nothing until a whole bunch of something right in the last 30 pages, and I really needed the pacing to improve for me to enjoy this story more. In my opinion, the cover is the best part of this book because overall it was just a bit boring. And I think I could have liked it if the end 30 pages were spread more throughout the book and we slowed down and spent more time with what happened in the last 30 pages, and we sped up and spent way less time with what happened in the first 270 pages. But ultimately, the pacing issues were a big enough deal for me that I can't give this book more than 2 stars. Moving on from 2-star books to 3-star books, but sticking with the theme of woman with flowers on her face for the cover, I have Horrid. I'm giving Horrid 3 stars. This is a YA horror book. And basically we follow this girl. She's a teenage girl who gets moved from her old hometown house to her mom's house that she grew up in because her dad died, and they basically have to move back to her mom's hometown to deal with rent and bills and that sort of stuff. But in this town, there's some creepy backstory with what happened to her mom when she was growing out, and the house seems like it might be haunted. The vibes in this book are so fun, and I overall had a really enjoyable experience with this. So this is a higher 3-star book. But ultimately, I needed a lot more from the ending to give it more than 3 stars because, in my opinion, the ending left a lot to be desired. I wanted a lot more explanation. This is just a very weird book. Like, weird things happen and then they're just never explained. So it's definitely one of those books where it's just all vibes and not a ton of detail behind the vibes, in my opinion. And I needed a little bit more detail, a little bit more explanation to give this book more than 3 stars. But the vibes were really fun, and I had a great time reading this book, so it's a solid 3-star read. Also, I just realized I accidentally forgot about one book, so I have 15 books to talk about, not 14 books. But moving on to my 3.5-star reads, and I have 3 3.5-star reads to talk about, the first of which is Valor. This was also read for Predict-a-thon, so I thought I was going to give this 5 stars. I unfortunately only gave it 3.5 stars. This is book 2 in the Faithful and the Fallen series. Malice was book 1. I gave Malice 5 stars, so the fact that I gave it sequel 3.5 is a bit of a disappointment. I can't really give you a plot synopsis for this because it is book 2, but this is just an adult epic fantasy series, multi-point of view. And when I say multi-point of view, emphasis on the multi because there are so many different points of views. I mean, there's so many different point of views in Malice, and then Valor just amps it up even more and adds even more points of view that we follow. And that was my main issue with the first half, is it just took me so long to stop feeling confused by all the point of view shifts. Because my issue is I read Malice, I think back in August, and so it's been a couple of months, and I couldn't remember if all of the point of view chapters that we were getting were from Malice characters or if they were new characters being introduced in Valor. So I was very confused on if I'm supposed to remember this person, if they're a new character being introduced to us. Like, I had no clue. And I mean, that's definitely a me issue, but also I think it's a little bit on the book because I feel like this book has like 50 main characters, so it's just a lot to handle, and I don't recommend taking breaks in between the series. I'm going to go pretty much straight into Ruin. Like, I'm hoping to read Ruin next month because I don't want to have a multi-month span in between the books because I really want to love this series. And so the first half, I just kept putting it down because I kept getting confused. Like, there were definitely point of views that I cared about and that I understood, but there were just also so many point of views that I didn't care about and I had no idea who they were. But then in the second half, things started getting more interesting for me, and I ended up really liking the second half. Beyond the point of view issue, I felt like because of the events in book 1, I wanted our characters to be a bit more active at the beginning of this book and have more of a plan than they did. I understand that maybe it's more realistic for them to be a bit meandering in the beginning half because not everyone is going to come out of a trauma knowing exactly what they need to do. But as a reader, I felt like the plot was a bit too meandering in this first part based on the fact that we had major events happen at the end of book 1. So I was like, come on, get your shit together. Let's go. Let's have a plan. But in the second half, I saw more of the plan happening. I saw our characters have more motivations, more goals. And there were some moments of people coming together, people meeting each other. And I love that in epic fantasy, especially when we have so many different point of views. It's so satisfying to see these characters meet each other. So I really enjoyed the second half. It's just the first half that dragged it down for me. So I'm giving it 3.5 stars. But I am hopeful because I love the second half so much that Ruin, the book 3 in the series, will possibly pop back up to a 5-star. My next 3.5 read book was also read for Predict-a-thon and another sequel of a fantasy book that I gave 5 stars to. So the fact that I'm giving The Last Graduate 3.5 stars is another sad day. This is a sequel to A Deadly Education, which I gave 5 stars to, and basically it's just an adult fantasy series that's set in a very deadly magic school that teenagers have to graduate from to go out into the magical world. But the thing is, like, most people end up dying in this school. This is a super, super deadly school. And again, same sort of issue. The first half of this book, I just did not feel much of connection to. I remembered what happened in book 1, so that was not my issue. I just felt like the first half of this book, we didn't get like any interesting character moments, where book 1, I was so invested in the character relationships that were being built. And then in book 2, I felt like they were ignored in the whole first half. And then we got more interesting character things going on in the second half of the book. Some more friendships being fostered in the second half, some more romance things happening in the second half. But the first half just didn't have enough character intrigue, especially because we felt like we got so much progress in book 1, and then we kind of backtracked a bit in the beginning of book 2. And so if you take out the character moments in this series, it's really just tons of info dumps, which I'm a fan of info dumps actually in fantasy series, but this was even a little bit too much for me in the first half, because it was pretty much only info dumps without a lot of plot happening, without a lot of character moments happening. Again, second half saved it. I'm really excited to go into the third book, especially since it ended on a massive cliffhanger. I need to read the third book right now. I mean, I just got the third book audiobook in from the library actually today, so I'm going to be listening to that after I'm done filming this video because I need to know what happens. But book 2 is just a 3.5 star. The third 3.5 star and the last 3.5 star I have to talk about is Love Light Farms. I'm not going to talk about this one too much because it's actually featured in my trying out holiday romance reading vlog that will be linked in the description box below. But Love Light Farms I gave 3.5 stars to. Moving on to my 4-star reads, first of which are also 2 other books that were featured in that same holiday romance vlog, A Merry Little Meet Cute and Kiss Her Once for Me. Gave them both 4 stars. If you want more thoughts, check out that reading vlog. Next 4-star book I had is All the Feels. I read this for Predictathon. Gave it 4 stars. I'm still counting that as a win. Of course, it's not a full 5-star, but I did really have a lot of fun with this book. The first half I was obsessed with, like I loved it so much. And then I felt like some of the conflict that happened in the third act breakup was just really dumb, and I hate when a character makes a decision that they believe is the best for the other character, and it's just so condescending that you think you know better than the other person does for their own freaking life. And that was the situation that was happening here, and it just is a really big pet peeve of mine, so I had to give this 4 stars, not 5 stars, because I hated the third act breakup. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. This is the sequel to Spoiler Alert, but they're both standalone, so they're just set in the same universe. Has some really good plus size rep in the female main character, and I just fell in love with both Lauren and Alex in this story. The premise of this book is that Alex is an actor and he had a very public breakdown, and Lauren is supposed to be his handler. She is hired to make sure Alex doesn't do anything embarrassing in public, since he's currently working on a very popular TV show, and the TV show doesn't want bad publicity. So she is basically like his babysitter for this grown man. And so there's a lot of tension between the two, because he's annoyed that she has to be there and she's annoyed that she has to be there. But it's forced proximity because it's their job. They have to be together. But I highly recommend this book. I had a lot of fun with it. I liked Spoiler Alert more, but this is still a solid 4-star read. The next and last 4-star read I have is Blood on the Tracks. This is a horror manga that I actually heard about from Erin, and then Sap was reading it on her sprints, and she convinced me to read it as well, and I had so much fun with it. I'm giving it 4 stars just because it's so short that it felt like there wasn't enough content to give it a full 5 stars, but once I read more of the volumes in this manga, I feel like it could be a 5-star overall series read for the manga. It's just volume 1 was 4 stars. But this is, Sap described it as a mother and son relationship that's reminiscent of the Bates Motel TV show, and I totally agree with that. Just a really, really creepy mother and son dynamic where the mother is way overly protective of the son. Super creepy. The art was so nice to see in such like a creepy way. Like, I just loved it so much. I have the first 8 volumes downloaded from Libby, and that's what I'm going to be reading over the next couple of days. I'm just gonna binge all 8 volumes, so check out for my end of the month wrap up. I'll probably be talking about volumes 2 through 8. Moving into my 4.5 star reads, I have 3 4.5 stars, and first of which is Make You Mine This Christmas. Again, I kind of featured this in my holiday romance reading vlog, so if you want more information about this book, check out that video. My next 4.5 star was A Flicker in the Dark. I am very, very happy to say that this book lived up to the hype for me, because I put this in my TBR for December and I said, oh, I feel like all of my friends didn't really like this book. And then everyone was commenting saying, hey, I really like that book. I gave it 5 stars. Oh, I gave it 5 stars too. And then this book is like the book of the year on so many different things, or it's nominated as book of the year finalist and stuff like that on Goodreads and book of the month. I'm like, geez, okay, I guess this book is really well loved. And I'm giving it 4.5 stars, so I also love it. The premise for this story is this woman, her dad was a serial killer, and she is kind of the reason why he was caught. He was killing a bunch of young girls. But it seems like now that she is a grown woman, the murders are happening again. And it seems like someone is trying to play with her mind with these murders, like it's a direct copycat of her dad's murders. And so she's looking suspicious from the police, but she's also trying to figure out who the heck is copying her dad, and family secrets are being let out. And so it's just about a serial killer back in the day and a serial killer in the present timeline. I love books about serial killers, and I loved this book. I feel like it had a lot of good serial killer content in there. The twists and turns were so fun to read about. I really enjoyed the characters in this story too. I felt like it was really fast paced. I actually read this all in one sitting because I just had to know what was going on. The only reason why it's not a full 5 star is just I wanted a little bit even more serial killer content. Like, we're really focused on this woman trying to figure out what's going on, but I feel like it could have been cool to get some serial killer point of views as well. Then my last 4.5 star book is You're Invited. I actually read this in November, but I totally forgot to talk about it in my wrap up. So I'm just talking about it now. But technically this was a November read. I'm giving You're Invited 4.5 stars. I had such an amazing time with it. This is an adult thriller where a woman gets an invitation for a wedding in the mail, and it is a wedding for her estranged best friend who happens to be marrying her ex-boyfriend. And she is very unhappy about the situation, so she decides that she is going to go to the wedding and basically be a menace at the wedding. But of course, we get some complications happening throughout, and it seems like maybe this woman's whose point of view we're following doesn't fully know what's going on. The drama in this book was magnificent. Like, the drama was top tier drama. I had so much fun with it. We got some very interesting structure choices too, with certain point of views happening like way at the end of the book. And I just love the ending to this book too. The ending is iconic. I had so much fun. The only reason why I'm giving this book 4.5 instead of 5 is I feel like there's about 50 pages in the middle that read really slow for me, but then it picks back up. So it only bothered me enough to lower it by 0.5 stars. But this is so close to being a full 5-star read. And then lastly, moving into my 5-star books, I only have 2 5-star books to talk about, but both of them were so much fun. So the first 5-star book is Blood of the Chosen. Blood of the Chosen is actually the sequel to Ashes of the Sun. And so I'm so happy to at least have one sequel in this video that got 5 stars, just like the first book did. Ashes of the Sun was 5 stars, Blood of the Chosen was 5 stars. I had so much fun with Blood of the Chosen. I was skeptical at first when I was starting Blood of the Chosen, because I feel like the reason why I gave Ashes of the Sun 5 stars was the plot plus the tension of these characters possibly meeting. But then the tension is not really there in the second book, but I was wrong. They found a way to put that tension back in there. And so I just had so much fun seeing the character relationships get even more complicated, seeing the plot expand, seeing the politics happen, the twists and turns that the story takes is so much fun to read about. I love this series. I can't wait to read the third book once it comes out. And I highly, highly recommend this for an adult fantasy series. I haven't even told you about the premise. It's hard to talk about it because, you know, it's a second book in a series. But the premise for the first book is basically, this is a adult epic fantasy series that has a lot of sci-fi elements similar to Star Wars. In fact, my friend Rachel describes this as gay fantasy Star Wars, which I think is a very good description. And basically, we follow these 2 siblings, Maya and Geyer. And Geyer is a rebel. He works trying to take down the Empire. And Maya was kidnapped by the Empire when she was 5 years old because of her magical abilities, and she's basically like a cop for the Empire. Think like Stormtrooper. And so we follow these 2 characters. One fights for the Empire, one fights against this Empire, but they're also siblings that haven't seen each other since they were kids, and it's so good. It's also just so readable too. Like, this is a good fantasy series for people that are beginners in fantasy because it's just easy to read. It doesn't overwhelm you with information. It's really focused on like the characters with an exciting, fast-paced plot. But the characters are just so relatable in so many ways, so funny. Like, I find myself laughing multiple times throughout this book. And moving on to my last book to talk about, my last 5-star read, and it is The Collective. And I'm so happy to have one 5-star read that was for Predict-a-thon. So I did predict one book correctly, and it is The Collective. This was actually following the prompt that someone with similar reading taste gave 5 stars to. And I don't know if I said that prompt right, but you know what I mean. My mom gave this book 5 stars, so I'm so happy that I also loved it since my mom loved this book. But 5 stars for The Collective. This is an adult thriller, and basically this is about a secret society of women who take revenge on people that have wronged them, particularly people that have wronged their children, that have gotten away with it, like the justice systems have not found them guilty. And things spiral out of control, and it's just so much fun. This is a revenge thriller. Highly, highly recommend it. The ending was so crazy. Like, I still am thinking about this ending even though I read this on the first day of the month. I had such a good time with it. 5-star thriller, one of my new favorite thrillers. Highly, highly recommend. All right, that's it. Those are all the books that I read in the first half of December. Let me know down below what books you've read in the first half of December and what your favorites so far have been. Even though I've only had 2 5-star books, I had so many 4.5-star books and 4-star books that I feel like I'm having a really great first half of the month. But thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!